Okay, this is part 2 of section 1.3. Before we had talked about the distance between 2 points on a number line, all you do is you take the absolute value of the difference of the two numbers. Now remember, difference means subtraction, so we took 31 minus 3, and when we did that, we got 28, and the absolute value of 28 is, of course, 28, because distance, absolute value measures distance, and distance is always positive. All right, now, using distance formula, which you learned in algebra, probably even pre-algebra, you got 6 minus 3 squared plus 8 minus 5 squared, and that's going to give you square root of 18. Now, square root of 18 can be broken down to either 3 radical 2, or you can say 4.24, because that is the decimal equivalent. That's what I figured up over here on my calculator. I did that just a moment ago. We'll talk more about that as time goes on. All right, let's talk about midpoint. A midpoint is important because it divides a segment into two congruent parts. So, for example, down here, if y is the midpoint of segment xz, that's a z, then that means that this right here, xy, is congruent to yz. Or their distances are equal, or their lengths are equal. That's what it means. Now, let's say by chance we're given this example. Here's what we know. We know that this is x, we know that this is y, and we know that that's z. We know that xy is 20. And we know that yz is 3a minus 7. And we want to know what the value of a is. We're trying to figure that out. Well, here's what we know. We know that since both of these parts are equal, we set them equal. So I set 20 equal to 3a minus 7. And then from there, we solve. Now remember, you're solving for a, so you add 7. So 27 equals 3a, and then you divide by 3. So you get a equals 9. Now in this case, it's only asking for the value of a, so we're done. If it asks us for the length of what yz was, we would just plug in a, and then we would get that value, which by the way is 20 since they're both equal. But it's not asking us for that. It's only asking us to determine the value of a. That's it. All right. Now, this one, very similar. But I do want to point one thing out to you while I'm thinking about it. Notice how this one, we set both xy and yz equal to each other. But we didn't do that here. We added these two together and set it equal to the whole thing. Here's why you do that. There's one word. Midpoint. When it says midpoint, you set these two equal. If it doesn't say midpoint, you don't do that. You add them together. Now here it didn't say midpoint, so you have to add them together. But when it says midpoint, only when it says midpoint do you set them equal. All right. Now, this one's a little tricky. You got to read very carefully. It says y is the midpoint of xz. So I got x, I have x, and this is y, and that's z. Now we're given that xz, that's the whole segment. This whole thing is 50. But it says that yz is 5c plus 10. This part's 10, or this part's 5c plus 10. And this whole thing is 50. Well, since we know it's a midpoint, then this right here is going to be 50 divided by 2, which y'all know 50 divided by 2 is 25. So that means that 5c plus 10 equals 25. And just like before, you solve for c. So you subtract 10, you get 5c equals 15. So C equals 3. You get C equals 3. And that's all it's asking for there. So there you go. You got to look for keywords. Midpoint. If it says midpoint, you set both parts equal. If it doesn't say midpoints, you add both parts together and it equals the total. Remember that. Those are that's a key tip you need to remember in this class. And a lot of people don't get that. So be very careful and feel free to ask me, feel free to email me if you have any questions on the topic. All right. Now, you have enough information to complete homework quiz 1-3. So go ahead, get on Canvas and complete that. And then that'll be due on Friday at 11:59 p.m. So make sure you have that completed by then. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me in class. Oh, and get to work.